Howdy folks, welcome to Coffee and CROON number 60. Yes, we've made it to the big 6-0, which is pretty awesome. So thanks for tuning in and checking us out over the last 60 episodes. Today I got a couple special things to present to you. Of course, it's the start of the week, so that means I played last week's recording. So I've got that lined up behind me, and that should be pretty exciting. The other thing is I am going to do a song from back. I think this is pretty much the turning point when I started to kind of pick up my guitar again after I spent a lot of time making trance music, and I had this kind of revelation around the turn of the millennium where I thought, yeah, what if all these prophecies of the end of the world come true? How am I going to make music without electricity? So I decided I'd better pick my guitar up again and start learning some songs. And then I went for a journey through Australia, through the desert, and just it kind of really, I suppose I just got a sense of the place where I was living for the first time ever. I mean, if to really understand Australia, you need to understand that in the middle of it is just this vast desert, and it has an amazing power. And so part of that process for me was discovering some of the stories of not only the Aboriginal people, but the first white people who came here, and discovered some of the bush poetry that was written around there. And one poet in particular that I resonated with was called Barcroft Boak, mainly because I think he's like the rock star of Australian bush poetry, because he hanged himself when he was 27, I believe. So that age, it was around then anyway, at the end of the 19th century. Here's a picture of him, so a bit of a show and tell. So he wrote an amazing poem called Where the Dead Men Lie, which when I read, I was just like, my God, this is amazing. And it was about herding cattle through the desert, and just basically about how, you know, the powers that be were just exploiting all these workers and giving them really crappy conditions. Australia was a real hotbed of workers' dissent around the end of the 19th at the end of the 19th century. So and Barcroft Boak was one of these radical poets, and but you know, he was also a lover, and which is kind of why he hung himself with his stockwhip, because he couldn't decide between two women that he was in love with. And I mean, he's an amazing romantic figure. So I started reading some of his poetry, and I actually set some to song, and this was, gosh, well over 10 years ago. So what I thought is I'd revive some of these songs, and I'd now that I can play my guitar a little bit better. You know, this is still quite a tricky one. So this is called Down the River, and this is not the entire poem, because bush poetry tends to go on. It's pretty epic. So what I thought, I'd do my little expurgated pop song version, which only goes for 4 or 5 stanzas. So in the folk tradition, it kind of is the same melody over and over. There's not a huge amount of progression in the music, but the story itself is what you listen for. So the words are what's important here. So I might as well just bang right into it. So this is called Down the River, and the words are by Barcroft Boak. Hark the sound of it drawing nearer, clink of hobble and brazen bell. Mark the passage of stalwart shearer, bidding the narrow soil farewell. Where is he making for? Down the river, down the river with eager tread. Where is he making for? Down the river to seek a shed. Where is his dwelling on old crossing or ginger wine. Dry plain is it, or sweet Bolaro? Perhaps it is near where the rivers join. Where is he making for down the river? When, oh when will he turn back? Soft sighs follow him down the river. Moist eyes gaze at his fading track. Dreams of life and its future chances, snatch of song to beguile the way. Through green crannies the starlight glances, silver gilding the bright jack shade. So long, maid, I can stay no longer. So long, maid, I've no time to stop. Pens are waiting me at Mahonga, Blue Gong Grubbin and Pulley Top. What you say that the river's risen, what that the melted snow has come, what that it locks and it bars our prison, many's the mountain streams I've swum. I must onwards and cross the river, so long, mate, for I cannot stay. I must onwards and cross the river, over the river there lies my way. One man short when the roll they're calling, one man short at old Bobby Rand's. Heads are drooping and tears are falling up on Monaro's mountain lands. Where is he making for down the river of slimy bed? Where is he making for down the river that bears him dead? So there you go, like all good folk laments, it ends in death. So that was set in the Monaro Ranges, which is kind of the southeastern part of the Australian Great Dividing Range, which runs down our east coast from Queensland all the way down to Victoria. So the Monaro is kind of in southern New South Wales and very near our capital Canberra, and you can drive over the Monaro Ranges and you can see what he talks about there about, you know, the sweet Bolaro. There's beautiful lush areas, but then there's the plains, which are just kind of these dry sort of areas, and I had a sense of that when I drove over those a few years ago, just seeing the beautiful lush bush, and then over you get into these kind of fields that have been cleared that are now paddocks, and but a beautiful part of Australia. So he kind of lived, Barcroft Boak lived, he was born in Sydney, but then he kind of spent time in the desert in Queensland, and also in that part of the Monaro Ranges where he was a surveyor, and that's kind of where he wrote a lot of his poetry. So I'll be probably doing a few more of those over the coming weeks, so it's exciting to rediscover that music for me, and hopefully I can just share some more of his tragic stories and his life with you all. So now it's time to share the results of my last week's. So if you tuned in to last Thursday's cast on Periscope, you would have heard me sing the song "The Least of All Possible Worlds," and I have since lushified that. I don't think it's 100% there. It never really is, but let's have a listen to the results. So greater love. Is this life I lead a fragment, a long forgotten scene of a greater dream? From a darker world, unknown terror, never be unfurled. Do I ride the wave of action? I refuse to take. Could have So I'll just let that play in the background. So there you go, you get an idea of what I've done with that one. That's kind of very murky mix at the moment, but hey, that's just my ear. I've been listening to it for a while. So, but yeah, look, it's coming along and it's sounding really cool, and so I think, just getting a bit of balance, and when Viz puts his drums on there, it'll kind of lift it to somewhere else again. So, yeah, it's been exciting sharing that with you and singing that song for you today. So thanks so much for tuning in. As always, there are links in the description of this video to my community if you want to join, if you haven't already, where you can download a few tracks and also just hear my story and keep in contact with me. Or also, if you feel the desire to throw me a tip, there's links to my rewards page on my website, so that would be most appreciated. So thank you again for tuning in and for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow here on Facebook for another Coffee and Croon. Alright. Oh, hang on. There we go. See ya.